Get started. I just had mine hit that it is 12 o'clock sharp. So I think we're going to start now that we have a nice group in joining us. I just want to say hi, everyone. My name is Heather Barrett. I'm a sea otter biologist, and I'm the Science Communication Director for Sea Otter Savvy. And we are so excited to have you guys here today. So I also just want to welcome you guys to our float. This is an event that we do every year. And so we're just really excited to have you join us for this event. I'm going to ask all of our locations to turn off their video just for a moment, since I'll be doing some screen sharing, and then we'll get to all of those locations at the end. Before we go down a little bit more about the float, I want to give you guys a little bit of background on Sea Otter Awareness Week and some recognition there. So we are celebrating 21 years of Sea Otter Awareness Week. It occurs every year during the last full week of September, and it is organized in partnership by Sea Otter Savvy, Defenders of Wildlife, California State Parks, Alaka Alliance, and Monterey Bay Aquarium. And we thank all of the collaborators that join us in spreading awareness. So this year marks the 21st year, and the theme is Restoring Missing Links. So we're recognizing that sea otters remain absent from large portions of their historical range, while celebrating the active efforts of the different conservation groups that are helping to restore a continuous population of these incredibly charismatic creatures, and also the other missing elements along the Pacific coast. You can see here in this logo designed for this year, there's actually different words for sea otter that are representations of different cultural significance of sea otter for all these different groups and cultures, since sea otters have impacted people for many years, and we've lived in coexistence for many, many years. So we're excited to have that featured in the logo as well. So this week also highlights Sea Otter Savvy's We Were Here Sea Otter program, and that educates communities and stakeholders who are missing sea otters, and we like to offer a survey for community involvement. So the Southern Sea Otter range is currently from around Pigeon Point, which is a little bit north of Año Nuevo State Park, to Gaviota State Park in the south. And this is just a really small segment of their historical range. And in that range, there's approximately 3,000 Southern sea otters. So sea otters did once inhabit all along the Pacific coast. They are ecologically and culturally significant. And there's an increasing discussion regarding potential reintroduction to historical habitats. So to move forward, government agencies and the sea otter research community need to engage stakeholders and communities and tribal representatives to hear their perspectives. So if you're wondering what you can do today, please take the Sea Otter survey if you have not already, and share your thoughts about potential reintroduction. Your voice does matter. And the links, the website, and the survey are all made available to you. Actually, in this video down below in the information section, they should already be there, and then I'll post them just shortly into the chat function as well, and they'll be shared at the end with the video. And then I just wanted to give you guys a little bit more. You can learn more about Sea Otter's story through our story map, where significant locations are highlighted, and the link will also be provided in the live stream. So that's just to give you guys a little bit more fun that you can do after this as well. There's ways that you can click on each of these, and then you can learn more information at those specific locations. But with that, without further ado, I want us to get to the float. So I'm going to stop this share. And we are now going to head to Oregon. We are going to be, I'm going to pin you guys. Oh, now it won't let me pin you after I did that too. There you guys are. Okay, there we go. We're going to start off in Oregon at Yaquina Head, outstanding natural area, where Ranger Jenny and Chanel are going to tell us more about their location. So thank you guys, and take it away for this float.
Hi, everyone. We are here at Yaquina Head Outstanding Natural Area on the central coast of Oregon, outside of Newport. I am here today with Ranger Jenny. She works for BLM, who manages this area. So the Alaka Alliance is a nonprofit here in Oregon working to return the otters to the Oregon coast, because sadly they were hunted to local extinction in our state. But oh my gosh, there is one right here. Take a look on the signs. So this is great signage we have here, letting everyone know that sea otters once were prevalent on the Oregon coast, and they are an important keystone species to return. So Yaquina Head was actually a place where a sea otter was spotted a couple years ago. I'll let Jenny talk about that right now.
Yeah, so in 2021, we did have a single sea otter visitor. They were here for about 2 months, and all the visitors got to come out and see them. Everyone got really excited about it. And it seemed to be pretty successful for a while. It had urchins to eat, it had kelp to play in. After about 2 months, it did wash up, unfortunately, with shark bite. And then we were able to transfer it over to the Hatfield Science Center, and they did try to save it, but unfortunately, it did not go well. But the fact that it was here is pretty promising.
Yes. So we have a little moody Oregon coast right now with some large waves. Let's see if I can show you. You can see there's some bull kelp down there on the cobblestone beach. We've got, sorry, it's probably super windy. I apologize if it's loud. We've got some pelicans that are behind me on the rock as well. Every time I've come here in the summertime, there's gray whale spouts all over. It's a really beautiful place. And this is also an excellent tide pooling spot too. So you'll find red urchins, purple urchins, gumboot chitons, crabs, everything fun and exciting here on the Oregon coast that also make great food for sea otters, hopefully in the future. And Alaka Alliance posted a feasibility study. It's on our website, and Yaquina Head actually is a potential reintroduction site for sea otters in the future. So that is why we're coming at you today from this location.
Thank you guys so much. It looks windy, but it looks really beautiful. So, and one day, hopefully we do get to see sea otters off from that point. So thank you guys so much for sharing that information and starting us off at the northern end. We are now headed a little bit further south to Smith River Estuary. That is in California. And we're going to be hearing from Rosa of the Tollodini Nation. Rosa, are you there?
I am.
Hi.
Dalaha, everyone. Hello, my name is Rosa Lauchi. I am the Marine Division Manager and Marine Biologist for Tollodini Nation. I have been running the Marine Division for about 11 years now. Tollodini Nation peoples are coastal people. Our ancestral territory runs from Wilson Creek just before the Klamath River in California, all the way up to Port Orford in Oregon. So it encompasses a lot of coastal areas. The Tollodini rely on those marine resources for subsistence, for cultural purposes. What I do in my program is a lot of baseline monitoring of cultural keystone species, which are species that are important not only ecologically but culturally to Tollodini. A lot of them are traditional foods. And so in this area is an area that does not have sea otters anymore. Hence, I have Otter the otter. And we recognize that that is a huge imbalance. And so we're working to potentially entertain the thought of reintroducing sea otters up here. Last year when I did this, I was actually at the beach where we thought maybe a good reintroduction spot would be. That spot is super, super foggy today. So I am now coming to you from the Smith River Estuary, which if I can flip this around, there we go. So this is our Smith River Estuary. We will definitely be entertaining the idea of potentially reintroduction here, as it's been very successful down in Moss Landing in the estuary. We have river otters here. I thought I just saw one pop up. So I'm trying to keep an eye out for that. But I'm on a site right now. This is what used to be called Ship Ashore. It's a restaurant, hotel, RV park, but it has now been purchased by the Tollodini Nation, and it's the site of one of our biggest villages, Kawankwat. And so there's a lot of restoration efforts that we plan to do here. And it's a really special area. Even down at the mouth, let's see if I can do this down at the mouth down there. There's a bunch of seals that like to hang out. You can kind of see them down there. but yeah, so this is a very special area. I don't see the river otter anymore. He's gone away. There's lots of birds though. But Tolowadeni Nation is part of the Tribal Marine Stewards Network, which is bringing co-management back into the hands of tribes, which is a really an amazing network of 5 coastal California tribes. Yeah, it's just it's a gorgeous day. Even though we had an atmospheric river, you can see there's some there's some clouds happening. But yeah, I'm really excited to have the possibility of sea otters being reintroduced here. And I think that's probably about it.
Thank you so much, Rosa, for sharing that location with us today. And I'm so happy that you did get to see a river otter pop up. I know that when we did the test a little bit back a couple days ago, he was there. So I'm so glad that he came back to visit with you. So now we are actually headed a little bit further south. We are going to another partnering tribe of the Tribal Marine Stewards Network. We're going to hear from members of the Kashaya Band of Pomo, who sent us a pre-recorded video as they did not have service at that location. So bear with me. I'm going to get them up onto the screen, and we are going to hear from Nina with the Kashaya.
So we wanted to show you some pictures first of the coastal reserve. We've got a good ocean view going on right now. Let's see if we'll take her all the in a minute, as well as in the marine resources. So my name is Nina Hafner. I'm the Director of Environmental Planning and Natural Resources for the Kashaya Band of Pomo Indians. With me, joining me today.
I'm Clayton Franklin, tribal member at Kashaya Band of Pomo Indians.
Yeah, thank you, Clayton, for coming out with us.
Of course, happy.
So, so the tribe is actively involved with recovery of sea otters back to this area. I think if I say this right, I'll look to Clay for, see if I got the pronunciation correct.
Did sound nice.
Kamotweke?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, that's sea otter in Kashaya. So we're really looking forward to seeing this animal coming back into the marine environment and adding balance back to it. Not everybody's really excited about that. I think some of the scientists that are working on abalone are concerned that those animals will eat all of the abalone first before they touch the purple sea urchin. But the tribe knows that these animals are smarter than people. People have really done some of the damage. And so these otters, we feel strongly that they're going to come back in and they're going to help put this place back in balance. And so we're excited to be a part of this and to see this creature, this animal come back here, and then to work with developing a good plan with it, living with people, certainly with Kashaya people, because they've lived together sharing resources before. Some of the other things that we are doing out here is monitoring our marine resources. We do sampling on phytoplankton and mussels. We do intertidal modeling out here. And I think that's all going to play into seeing how this landscape changes with the reintroduction of sea otter here. We do see occasional pairs that come up the coast. We always wonder if they make their way back down, or hopefully they safely make their way back down, but we're seeing them more frequently up here in this area. We'd really like to see a whole lot more of them. Anything you'd like to add, Clay?
Yeah, definitely just keep an eye out now, which is pretty cool. Growing up, you didn't get to see that as much. It's pretty cute seeing them hold their hands when they're sleeping and stuff. But yeah, I know it's a big thing culturally, biodiversity wise. It's something that needed to happen, and I'm just glad it finally is. When the Russians first came in, colonizing, they brought Alaskans with them as slaves, kind of. But it was good to trade with them with otter. It was really good for hunting as well, especially for fishing. because water's really cold. But yeah, I'm glad to be alive to see it now. You know,
And I think that when, if I remember correctly, when the Russians came and they brought Alaska natives down here, they ended up decimating the sea otter population. And back in around 2012, people from Alaska came back to the space and asked if they could have some gatherings on Matini, which is down at Fort Ross. And they asked the Kashaya-Pomo for permission and apologized for their part in the destruction of that creature here in the space. And so it was a good time to like reestablish those relationships. So as I said, I think that when we start to see populations show up, we may have some Alaska indigenous people coming down to celebrate that with the tribe.
yeah, that'll be a big little party for sure.
So we hope you enjoy your journey on Float Down the Coast. Thank you for stopping by in Kashaya territory and hearing what we're working on and what we hope to see here in the future. Have a good journey.
With that, I'm going to say thank you so much to the Kashaya for joining us on this float. It is amazing to be able to see their location here from their words. So thank you, Nina, for sending that video so you could be a participant this time. And now we are headed further south to Elkhorn Slough. So this is now an area with a healthy population of sea otters, and we're going to hear from Jenna. So Jenna, I'm going to pin you and you can take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenna Benthal. I am the director and founder of Sea Otter Savvy, and I'm here in Elkhorn Slough. And slough is a weird, funny kind of word for estuary wetlands. And this particular estuary connects to Monterey Bay right at the heart of Monterey Bay. And it's a really important place for sea otters. And I'll tell you what, we have hit the jackpot of sea otter experts here today for Float Down the Coast. We're going to have some folks that are working together on a research project studying some things about the otters, finding out some new things about the otters here in Elkhorn Slough. So I'm going to flip my camera around here. And Heather, I don't know if you can see, I'm not actually pinned. So I'm just looking at my thumbnail right now.
You are pinned, but if for some reason, I guess it's not showing for you, but you are pinned as the main one.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Yeah. Try clicking on that. Nope. All right. So we're going to start out right here on the bow of the boat with Lillian. Lillian, tell us about yourself and the work that you're doing here in the slough.
Hey everyone, I am Lillian Carswell. I work for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm the Southern Sea Otter Recovery and Marine Conservation Coordinator. And I am also a PhD student at UC Santa Cruz, and we are studying sea otters here in Elkhorn Slough. So the main goals of our study are twofold. One is to study social behavior of sea otters, which is a topic that has not been studied as much, nearly as much as foraging ecology or other aspects of sea otter life. And the other aspect of our study, the main goal is to look at chronic stress in sea otters. So for the social behavior portion, what we really want to know is who's affiliated with who. Like, do social affiliations matter to sea otters? Does it matter to them who they're resting next to? And so for that, we're tracking these individual sea otters and we're recording who we see them with every single day when they're mostly when they're resting, but also in the vicinity if they're foraging or interacting with each other. For the chronic stress aspect, what we're really interested in are the various sources of chronic stress to sea otters, and there are many. You know, it could be nutritional stress, it could be social stress, it could be some kind of physical ailment they have. But the main one that we're really interested in looking at here in the slough is how human disturbance might impact the chronic stress levels of sea otters. And the way we measure that is by taking hair samples from sea otters and looking at the cortisol that's been incorporated into the hair. And so that gives us a picture of the stress levels that otter has experienced on average over the last few weeks or months. And by comparing that to their home range and the level of exposure to human disturbance, we think we can get at some physical measure of how chronically disturbed these sea otters really are. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the project manager of the study, Michelle.
Thanks, Lillian. Michelle, tell us about yourself and what you're doing here in the slough.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Stedler, and I am the field manager for this project, helping Lillian Carswell and working through UCSC. And right now, we've been out today looking at these otters. We've been collecting forage data, not forage data, sorry, recite data, all the different individuals that we've seen. And on the back here, I have a list of all the otters that we should be looking for. We have really cool ways of identifying individuals. We have flipper tags. And these are all the different colors of tags that we put on the otters. Each otter has a unique combination of 2 tags put on the rear flippers so that when they're laying in the water, and they put their feet up, we are easily able to identify individuals of who's who. We captured these animals about a year ago. We had special ways of capturing them, brought them to an otter base where we have a veterinarian look at them. And we put the tags on them, release them back into the wild right away, and then we come out and start watching them. So for the group of animals, last year we captured about 63 otters that we put tags on. And we are able to see almost all of them right now. We had a few that died for various reasons. One, shark mortality. Early on, it was a male who had gone offshore. And then we had one female that we're not sure why she died. Then the rest in the group, we have about a dozen males that we still watch, and we have the remaining females. We've been looking at pups being born. We've had 20 pups or so born within our last year. It's been really fun to watch these moms raise their pups, and they're just about ready to get weaned now. So we're looking forward to seeing the pups be weaned and a new batch of pups being born. And we have our certain individuals that we see on a regular basis, and we give them names sometimes based on their behavior or based on their tag colors. We had one female in particular that was very gregarious when it came to other otters and seeing us. And recently she lost both of her tags, so we're hoping that we'll be able to recapture her in our next set of captures, which is coming up in about a month or so. And we'll be collecting a lot more otters and adding more to our study. I think that's about it. We do collect, like Lillian said, we collect social behavior, who's hanging out with whom. We also do forage data collection where we look at their dives, what they bring up on each dive, how long they're handling the prey, and whether they're sharing it with a pup or not sharing it with the pup if they have one. And all kinds of fun stuff. So it's really fun to be out here, especially on a beautiful day like today. I'm not sure if you can see the raft that we have over here. There's about 19 otters in there, mostly males. We do have one female that's been hanging out with these guys. A couple of them are tagged, not a lot of them are tagged today. And they've been playing around, moving around a lot, and just enjoying the nice weather as well. The slough is a very important place for sea otters, and I'm going to turn you over to Ron, who's going to talk more about the slough and some of the volunteers from his group that also help with our project.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ron Eby, and I'm a volunteer at Elkhorn Slough National Western Research Reserve. And we have a team of about 24 people that are part of the reserve. We call them ROP, the Reserve Otter Monitoring Program. And we do our monitoring here. And this is just my happy place. It is an ideal environment for observing otters, and as an ideal place for studying them. It also has been an ideal place for releasing some of the surrogate raised otters, because you can monitor them from shore, or you can monitor them from boat. They're not going to go too far offshore where the environment isn't nearly as good. Offshore, they can get shark bites. That's one of the biggest causes of mortality of southern sea otters. Also, moms and pups can get separated because of the waves and high surf at times. In here, this is only about 7 miles long and about a quarter of a mile wide. There is plenty of food for, right now we have about 120 otters that are in here. And it's just amazing that you have this high a concentration of otters in such a small area. And one of the neatest things is, not only have we found that this is ideal for otters, numerous studies have shown that, but also that the otters are great for Elkhorn Slough. It would be so for any other estuary environment. Perhaps the biggest thing they've done is that the eelgrass crab populations under control. That allows the grazers to go up and down the eelgrass to keep it clean to survive. Without otters, there were so many crabs that the grazers were just not enough to keep the eelgrass clean. But once the otters came in and kept the crab population under control, now our eelgrass is flourishing up and down. And that's really critical. Eelgrasses are endangered, just like the southern sea otters are.
Thanks so much, Ron. You guys are all watching. Is this do you guys know Michelle or Lillian, is this a male?
It looks like
Yeah, yeah. Just kind of swimming and grooming. And we got a harbor seal too. So there's lots of other wildlife in this area. Lots of birds have been flying through. Hopefully you've been able to see that. And I'm just gonna pan over one more time. We're doing a fancy tap dance on this little boat to make sure I can see the otters. So you can see this raft that Michelle was talking about. And Michelle, what are the main things that they eat here in the slough?
one of the main prey items that the otters like to eat are these things called fat innkeeper worms. They're really big and pink yellow worms that the otters will dig out of a U-shaped burrow in the mud. And they can go down and quickly dig those out. And they eat one of those in about 20 seconds. They'll swallow them. Another thing we see a lot of are clams, Washington clams, sometimes gaper clams. Occasionally we'll see little short crabs, razor clams on occasion as well. And once in a while we'll see it when they're closer to the opening of the harbor, we'll see some cancer crabs.
Cool. Really beautiful place. Thank you so much, Lillian, Michelle, and Ron. Okay, Lillian, Michelle, and Ron. And I'm gonna flip it back around.
And then Jenna,
Thanks.
since we have a big chunk of time, everyone's going so speedy. I have a couple questions for you at the slough. That maybe since we're at such a pretty spot now, we're at the party boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of us watching right now want to be on that boat. That looks like a lot of fun, and you've got such a beautiful view. So I just wanted to take a little bit more, a couple minutes here, since we have so many of you guys that had such interesting things to say. I think some of the people would be probably interested to hear, what do you feel at Elkhorn Slough as a location makes it so unique and special, especially for females and pups?
Lillian, you want to answer that?
Sure. So one thing that's really special in California is that there are areas back here that do not have any human use. They're close to humans. And so we have this pickleweed in the salt marsh, and the mothers and pups, they can haul out on this pickleweed. And being able to haul out helps them save energy because they're not using as much heat to the ocean anymore. And when they save energy, that means they can save time because they don't have to make up that energy foraging. And so it's a really beautiful scene back here. In the parts of the slough that are closed, we can look at them and observe them with our Questar telescopes, and they don't even know we're there. We get up on this hill and we watch them. And these very large groups of sea otters assemble, 20 to 30 sea otters back there, often with pups, and they haul out the pickleweed together. Sometimes they get too warm and then they go back in the water, but it's a peaceful, closed area. And that's really different from some of the other areas of the slough, like the one we're in right now, for instance. This is Seal Bend, and it gets a lot of activity from kayakers and boaters. And, you know, those people mean well for the most part, but kayakers often approach the sea otters that we're next to here today way too closely, and they wake them up. And so they get woken up many, many times a day. And when they're not allowed to rest, then they're wasting a lot of energy. And so, of course, that is something I mentioned already, that we're looking at. How stressful is that for sea otters to be having to be constantly on guard, constantly looking around them, and constantly waking up and diving to avoid the people.
Thank you. That was excellent. So with that, I think I will start to head down, but I just wanted to give everyone one last hello and goodbye from our party boat at Elkhorn Slough. We did have Lisa say thank you. She's looking forward. She's gonna, I guess in a month, go to the coastal observing. She's gonna go observe otters in Elkhorn Slough, and I'm sure she'll stay sea otter savvy and maintain respectful distances. But thank you guys all at Elkhorn Slough. We are now headed to meet with Allie and Katie at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And so I'm going to pin you guys next. Hi, Allie. Hi, Katie.
Hi, I'm Allie.
And I'm Katie. We are sea otter rehabilitation specialists here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. We're coming to you live from one of our behind the scenes area here at the aquarium, overlooking the beautiful Monterey Bay. You can see behind us.
Yeah, so the Monterey Bay Aquarium is located on the Monterey Peninsula, which primarily consists of kelp forest habitat and is currently home to about 500 southern sea otters.
To help recover the California threatened southern sea otter population, the Monterey Bay Aquarium has been rescuing, treating, and releasing southern sea otters since 1984. During this time, our program has taken over 950 otters into our care, and we've seen the southern sea otter population increase to nearly 3,000 individuals. This increase in otter population has contributed to improved ecosystem health along the Central Coast.
In collaboration with other trained institutions, our program responds to southern sea otters in need all along their range. Usually this starts with a call from a member of the public who sees an otter in need, and someone from our team responds. Now, handling sea otters can be extremely dangerous, so if you see a sea otter in need, it's really important to give them their space and wait for professionals with the proper training and safety equipment to arrive. And some of that safety equipment that we use are actually these Kevlar gloves that you see Katie wearing here. And these are actually made out of a bulletproof material.
So once sea otters are in our care, our day-to-day work includes a lot of routine husbandry skills like preparing food, cleaning, and feeding the otters. Because we want to keep the otters in our care wild, whenever we do something positive with the animals, like feeding them, we wear a lovely outfit to disguise our human form. You can see Allie is modeling that outfit for us. Otters come into our care for a variety of reasons at all different ages. So our days look very different depending on the needs of the animals that we have in our care.
Many of the cases that come into our care are actually orphan pups. So when these pups are still very young, they need intensive care from human caretakers. So some of the things we might be doing with cases like this might be bottle feeding. We do lots of grooming using different towels and brushes. We're also going to be introducing these animals to different types of solid food and encouraging them to hit developmental milestones that are going to be really key for their success. And all of this, of course, we are doing completely in our very fashionable disguise that you see here.
Once the pups are old enough, they're paired with a surrogate mother, and that's what's so unique about our program. In 2001, we started using our non-releasable resident sea otters as surrogate mothers. The surrogate mothers teach the pups vital skills that they'll need to be successful back out in the wild. So they teach them how to forage on different prey items, how to groom effectively, and even how to socialize with other sea otters.
After the pup's dependency with a surrogate, they will continue to refine their skills in a group of similarly aged otters and prepare for release. So before we release any otters, we give them some forms of identification, like these colorful flipper tags that you see here, and that's just going to help.
Once the otter is released back into the wild, our team will track them extensively until we feel that they are successful enough to be deemed successfully released. We're looking for otters to be foraging consistently and on quality diet items. We want to see them maintaining great coat condition, and we also want to make sure that they're interacting appropriately with other sea otters and that they're not interacting inappropriately with humans. We currently have a pretty full house with otters in all different stages of rehabilitation, and they're all working towards release.
Wonderful. Thank you guys for joining us at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. We really appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy. I know you guys are probably very busy. When are you allowed to tell you how do you have pups in house right now, or is there
Yeah, we have one pup currently that is doing really well developmentally. She is sort of towards the end of her time in that intensive human care, and she's become a really good forager. She's grooming pretty well, and so we are just getting ready to pair her with a surrogate very soon.
Oh, wonderful. I have one more question, just because I think it ties into some of the things I was hearing people ask too, was when the pup is then going to go to a surrogate mother and you guys are sort of offering different prey items, do you guys add that sort of abroad, or do you keep it more specific to, I know sea otters can be specialists, right? So do you have a broad range of diet for them, or do they already start to specialize early?
That's a good question. We want to keep it broad because we want to prepare them to be as successful as they can be in the wild. So we try to keep them actually from having preferences while they're with us. So that way, once they're out in the wild, what's available to them, they're willing to eat. And then, you know, during their time in the wild, if they start to specialize on prey items, that's totally fine. But with us, we do tend to keep that as more broad diet items.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining us for Float Down the Coast. And so now we are going to head to Morro Bay and we're going to hear from Robin and Riley. And I'm just going to pin you guys. And lucky guy, you guys get to be on boats too. Joining us from kayaks.
Hello. Yes, my name is Robin. I'm a state park interpreter here on the San Luis Obispo coast, and we're currently on kayaks in Morro Bay. And Morro Bay is a really unique spot because it's much smaller than Monterey. So it's actually what's called a disturbance hotspot because it's a much smaller area, but we have a fairly large population of sea otters here. We're currently at 53 sea otters, 7 of them being pups. And we also have a lot of recreation, so kayak being one of them. A lot of people like to come here to kayak, to stand up paddleboard. We've got people who swim in the bay. There's a lot of recreation that happens. So we have a lot of wildlife and you have a lot of recreation all at once, which leads to this disturbance hotspot. But we have a lot of neat programs here that help to mitigate disturbance to the wildlife. One of them being Sea Life Stewards. I'm actually wearing a shirt right now. Sea Life Stewards is a California State Park volunteer program, and they help to serve as naturalists on the water. So they inform people about proper etiquette when you're recreating, so how to recreate responsibly, and also just fun facts about the wildlife that they may see while they're visiting, because they can be visiting from who knows how far away and have absolutely no idea that they may be disturbing an animal. So it's never an intention to do so. So they serve as a really big wealth of resource for that. We also have here on Morro Bay what's known as an estuary, and estuaries actually serve as nurseries. So Morro Bay is also a really popular spot for mama sea otters to raise their young pups. So again, like I mentioned, we have 7 of them here currently in the bay. And these estuaries serve as nurseries. And I actually have my friend here, Riley Hine from the National Estuary Program, who is going to tell us a little bit more about this eelgrass. I've got some here for you to see. So this is eelgrass, and we have had some pretty remarkable changes in our eelgrass and its population here within Morro Bay.
Yeah, as Robin said, my name is Riley. I'm with the Morro Bay National Estuary Program. And one of our big restoration and monitoring projects that the estuary program is doing been for decades is eelgrass restoration. And making sure we map every year how much eelgrass and the acreage and coverage in Morro Bay. And in 2017, we only had 13 acres of eelgrass left in Morro Bay. And just the other year in 2021, we mapped over 500 acres. Which is one of the largest rebounds ever recorded in eelgrass. And sea otters and eelgrass are really important with their relationships. It has been found in some studies that a healthy sea otter population can create over almost 30% more genetic diversity in eelgrass, which really helps with resilience to eelgrass in case there are any changes in water quality, turbidity, dissolved oxygen, that some different genetic variations are able to survive and adapt. So we really love having all the sea otters around for the eelgrass. It is a really important species to the bay.
We're going to give you a little view of what we're looking at here. because again, like most people have said, it's an absolutely gorgeous day here. And what we actually have is really, really calm waters. So you can see the wind is picking up a little bit, but for the most part, it's really calm, especially compared to on the other side of the strip of land that you see. That's actually the sand spit. If you're familiar with Morro Bay's geography, there's a sand spit that blocks the majority of the bay. And then you've got, of course, the iconic, there it is, iconic Morro Rock right there, where the bay filters out into the ocean. And if you can hear, you may not be able to hear necessarily, but it's actually really, really loud out here right now. And that's because the waves are huge today. So just across that sand spit, just across that rock, along the coast, we have 10+ foot waves right now. And so there's some serious white noise going on in the background. And that is, as you can imagine, not an ideal spot for these sea otters to hang out. So that's why this bay, for amongst many other reasons, is a phenomenal place for these sea otters to raise their young, to thrive, and to not only benefit themselves, but also enhance the habitat and the ecosystem that's here already.
Thank you, Robin. I'm hoping, can you show everyone the eelgrass again, either from the water view or even pick some of it up? I mean, it was just so unique. There we go. Wow. And how long does eelgrass tend to get? Do either of you guys know?
It depends on the depth. So it is a flowering plant. So it's always going to reach up for a little bit more photosynthesis from the sun. Thankfully, in the estuary here, it's not too deep, other than where they dredge in the Morro Bay Channel. So it's really a great depth for just an average length. To maybe like 3-4 feet you'd see for the longer ones.
Yeah, thank you. Because so just give people a sense that it's quite shallow right there. And so it's amazing this, you sometimes can see sea otters they try to wrap themselves up in the eelgrass in these shallow waters. And then Robin, would you like to touch on the fact that I believe there are viewing stations this week during Sea Otter Awareness Week as well?
Yes, there is. So just again, if you're familiar with the Morro Bay, within Morro Bay State Park at the Morro Bay Museum of Natural History, we have a viewing station there just at the entrance of the museum. And you'll find a table there. There's a sea otter pelt. We've got a sea otter skull. So you can see for reference these different animals and their unique characteristics and adaptations that they have in order to survive. Somebody I'm sure has already mentioned it, but they are the only marine mammal that don't have blubber. So they've adapted to have this really thick fur, 1 million hairs per square inch, in order to survive in this chilly ocean water. And it's tolerable today, but if we were to be sitting or dunking or swimming in this water, we would most likely need a wetsuit for a long period of time. It is really chilly, and these are warm-blooded animals just like us, so they need that protection. And again, they've adapted to have that protection by having such thick fur. And so seeing that pelt and being able to touch it gently with the back of your hand, you're able to see just how remarkable these animals are and the adaptations that they've had in order to survive in these fairly harsh environments. We've got some neat kelp here. Also, it's super clear out today, so it's really unique that we can actually see almost to the bottom. Again, it's pretty shallow, but it's still unique to be able to see all the way to the bottom.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for joining us from Morro Bay. And we are now, so bye everyone. I'm jealous you guys get to be on the kayaks, another party boat location, a true float. Well, we are now going to head down to see Parker at Gaviota State Park. Hi, Parker.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Doing good. So glad you can join us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Well, I'll let you take it away and tell us all about your location, Gaviota.
That sounds great. Well, once again, welcome everyone to Gaviota State Park. My name's Parker, and I'm an interpreter and naturalist here along the Gaviota coast. So I work for California State Parks, and I'd like to welcome you today and just take a look at this incredible view that we got going. It's a beautiful day. We got some slight breeze coming in, a little bit of a swell coming up by the pier today. But here at Gaviota State Park, we are along the southern periphery of our otter populations along the coast here in California. So we don't quite see the density as we do in other locations that you've already seen here in California today. But this past year, we've actually been starting to see more and more otter sightings and populations kind of making their way down to the Gaviota and a little bit more to the east of us here today at Refugio State Beach along this coastline here, which kind of provides a little bit of evidence and a little bit of information too about the missing links too, and some questions too about perhaps why those otter populations are slowly starting to move down the coast, especially far down as Refugio, just past where we are here. But Refugio, for context, is about 10 miles from us here at Gaviota today. And so what I'm going to do though, is I am going to go ahead and share my screen and share with you an incredible drone video that was actually captured from researchers at UC Santa Barbara, a team of students and biologists there. But here we are. So if you kind of take a look at this, this was drone footage taken from about halfway between Gaviota and Refugio at a place called Arroyo Quemada. You can see all of the otters there as they're making their way through that kelp forest. It's a nice clear day that day too, some great visibility. So I believe in this footage here, you can spot about 9 otters. At its peak, we are able to see about a raft of about 17 otters in this area. I do have another footage to share too. But you can see in the video, typically when we were observing them, we were observing healthy otters, otters that were grooming, and also otters that were feeding too. We found that in some of our sightings, otters were eating mussels. We did see some munching on some clams. Definitely some sea urchin, and of course, how could you forget the octopi too? Gotta eat that octopus. And based too on some of their foraging here in the Santa Barbara area, the otters in our area are not resource limited, which means that they're not limited by the food that are here. We typically find them in good condition and well fed, and also too, we typically see in the Santa Barbara Channel that the otters are eating a lot more octopus than otters in other regions in California too. But those drone footage there, I hope that provides a little bit of context too for the incredible sightings that we've been seeing. And that drone footage was taken earlier this spring, but we've had otter sightings on and off since about February all the way through midsummer. About end of July was when we last saw them along our coastline here specifically, but with more sightings up a little bit more up coast from us towards Point Conception in an area known as Coho. So that's primarily where the main raft in our area hangs out, but definitely really cool to see them right here along the Gaviota coast.
Thank you so much, Parker, for joining us. And I just want to say that was our last location down this float. So I just want to thank all of our participating organizations and those that came to join us at these different locations on our float. And we do have some time. We've got about, a little 13 minutes for some questions. And we do have a couple questions that came in that I think would make for some great discussion. So I'm going to ask all of our speakers to turn their videos back on. And we're all going to join together and we're going to go through a few questions that came in. And so the first one that I see is there's a question about, since there are several otters, so this is going to be to the aquarium. Since there are several otters at the Monterey Bay Aquarium that have been surrogate mothers, how was an otter chosen for surrogacy? Great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So generally it's going to be based on the age of the animal when they come in. So if we have a very young pup come in that in the wild would normally be dependent on a mom still, then they would go through that surrogacy route and be paired with one of our resident females.
Wonderful. Okay. And how long does that process, I mean, surrogacy, how long does the process sort of take for you guys when you start?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So it sort of depends on the age of the animal. So they come in usually until they're about 8 to 10 weeks old. We're sort of preparing them for surrogacy, and then usually they're going to be with a surrogate from that 8 or 10 weeks all the way till 6 months. So we sort of try to mirror what we would see in the wild. And so that 4-month period or so is when they would be with that surrogate mom.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for answering that question. We have a question from Margaret. I know that there was a study about the impact of sea otter presence on eelgrass and Elkhorn Slough. Will there be a similar study of sea otters to Morro Bay eelgrass survival? Is there someone that would like to take that? Would that be just one of our scientists on those boats in Elkhorn Slough might want to take that question from Margaret? Great question, Margaret. Thank you. Let's see.
So I'll just start out and answer saying that there is no current large scale project going on in Morro Bay that's equivalent to the one in Elkhorn Slough, but there are students from Cal Poly. So there's a whole team of Cal Poly undergraduates that are studying foraging, sea otter foraging inside the bay, and we can combine that with the monthly counts that we do in Morro Bay to really track how they're moving and how they're utilizing the estuary or the back bay part of larger bay more. But in terms of a graduate student project, Lillian, do you know of anything going on?
I don't know of anyone currently doing it, but grad students, if you're listening, I think that would be a great project to take on. So
yeah.
So you heard it here.
The call is out. Bring everyone in. Wonderful. Thank you for answering that question. We have another question from Martin Lee. So I believe asking, has the raft of sea otters at Elkhorn Jetty, so right there at Moss Landing Jetty, I believe is what is being described, relocated? Had seen them there before, and I believe has maybe not seen them there recently. So I'm guessing Elkhorn Slough Group, or the party boat, might answer this one as well, because I think it involves a little bit longer of an explanation.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Ron. Oops, here we go. Oh, come on. There we go.
Okay. So unfortunately, that raft of otters left in about 2019. There's no clear reason why they left. The numbers have been completely down.
And Jenna, I'm sorry, can you get closer to Ron? We can't quite hear him.
When we first started studying them in 2007, there were about 100 otters that were holding out there. I think our highest count was 89. The numbers had gradually been dwindling until about 2019, when there were about 20 otters left. At that point, one otter came in and seemed to chase them off. We saw him chasing several off the beach. But then eventually the 20 otters went offshore, and we saw them in two rafts, one to the north, one to the south. And that lasted for about 6 months, and then they seemed to disappear. So they didn't come into the slough. They went back out into the ocean. And we don't really know why. There was no contamination, no diseases, nothing we could determine other than that one rogue otter that then maintained that for what, Lily, about 3 years or so, 2 years, something like that. Maintained that area. And now he's left, and we just get occasional otters coming through there.
Very interesting. Thank you for that, Ron. So we have a question from Bryce Dunlap. Is any group going to talk about kelp forest preservation for otter habitat and urchin infestation? I'm going to throw this maybe a little bit to Chanel, since I know she's been doing a lot of work with the Lock Alliance on some of the presentations there. I will say that later this week, on Friday, there will be a presentation specifically about that topic. So Bryce, I can add that link into the chat in just a little bit. But Chanel, would you like to touch on any of that from the Oregon's point of view? And she can't maybe hear me. So I'm going to maybe have Jenna or someone else want to take that as I type the question into Chanel, because I don't know if it's so windy there. I think she's having difficulty hearing. So I'm going to copy and paste that one into her. Jenna, if you're trying to talk, you're muted. Thank you everyone for joining live streams. They're kind of fun with the tech stuff too.
No, I was just we were discussing bachelor rafts and the difference between the old raft at Jetty Road and the little mini bachelor raft that's up here in the slough. So yeah. got a lot of experts on board, so all lots of opinions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I just was able to type into Chanel just to get a sense, is there any kelp preservation happening in Oregon? Because I do know that there's been a lot of talk and discussion and stuff about that. I want to give her a chance to speak before she gets blown away. And then I can hand it over to Rosa as well if she has any thoughts for that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I don't know
After
why.
this, you can go hide somewhere nice and warm.
Okay, sorry. I don't know why. Okay. Yes, there is some kelp restoration work happening in Oregon that is mostly led by the Oregon Kelp Alliance down on the southern Oregon coast. That's where the most of our kelp is in the state of Oregon. Is it southern Oregon? Because that's where the rocky reefs are that kelp like to hold onto with their hold fast. Although we do have several pockets of kelp along the central Oregon coast as well, like here outside of Newport and where we will like to feast upon the beautiful bison shrimp that live inside that kelp forest as well. We do have a stable amount of kelp here on the coast for a sea otter reintroduction, although it's not as expansive as it once was over a century ago before sea otters were hunted to extinction. But since sea star wasting disease happened and those sunflower sea stars were the top predators of urchins, right now we are at an imbalance, like most of the coast on the Western Pacific, with urchin barrens happening without their keystone predators eating them. So there are lots of researchers and great universities working on some kelp work as well. So it is a team effort and collaborative. So we're happy to partner with them on that effort as well.
Thank you, Chanel. That was excellent. I'm going to hand it over to Rosa to work on that question too, since there was questions a little bit about the urchins and urchin barrens. Rosa, would you like to say anything about that question from Bryce about kelp forest restoration, habitat, and urchin infestations?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I retreated to my car.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
It did get a little windy, and I thought there was going to be a little bit of a storm, so I just popped in my car. But I am still there. Like, I'm still here.
Yeah.
But yes, I realized, like, after my time, there was so many things that I forgot to say, because that's what always happens. But yes, so we, Tallawoodia Nation is actually putting in for some funding to do some kelp monitoring and restoration work. We're going to be collaborating with Sunken Seaweed LLC out of Humboldt County to do some tumble culture on a culturally important species of seaweed that we use as a traditional food, but also establish some kelp monitoring and potential restoration techniques up here with them. We're going to all get scuba certified, so we have a dive team that we can go out and monitor subtidally. We do have a couple of spots that are really badly infested with purple urchins. We've been monitoring that since about 2020 when we first discovered this little area. We don't have a whole lot of kelp forests up here, and there's not a lot of data available in this area as well. Like this area that I'm in Del Norte County is the very northwest corner of California, right before Oregon. We're maybe, I don't know, 4 miles from the Oregon border where I sit right now. But this little area gets overlooked a lot. And so there's not a lot of data for it. And a lot of the things that I'm doing through my program is baseline data collection to just try to get a sense of what's going on, and then incorporating traditional knowledge to get a more of a historical baseline and figure out what we can do to bring back that balance. So yeah, so we'll get funded to do that work. And then that will definitely fold into that potential sea otter reintroduction and seeing if there's, suitable habitat that we can reintroduce otters into as well.
Thank you, Rosa. That's excellent. That's a huge call out. And I think people don't always think about that. For research, you need funding. So if there's the need for certain research projects, funding is a huge part of that. So thank you for bringing that up as well. I'm going to go to our next question about sea otters or keystone species. What does that mean exactly? And what would happen if sea otters were no longer in an environment? I'm going to throw that one to Robin in Morro Bay because she was showing some kelp fronds as well. Robin, do you mind giving a definition of a keystone species, what that means if they're missing? And maybe you can touch on sort of an example of an urchin baron as well. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, we're flown around a little bit, so it might get a little wild because the wind is picking up. But a keystone species is essentially a species that is needed for a certain ecosystem in order for it to thrive. So, for example, urchins, if you can imagine those purple spiky, they look like pincushions, sometimes they're red. Those animals like to eat algae, which is kelp. So if you imagine an entire big kelp forest, lots of species depend on that kelp forest. It's a home and habitat for several different species. If a sea urchin comes through and mows down that entire kelp forest, all of the species that depend on that kelp forest to live, to rest, to raise their young, to eat, are all affected when that habitat is entirely gone. And so where the sea otter comes in, they're essentially like a superhero because they come in and they need a lot of rich caloric food in order for them to fuel their bodies. And that when there's an abundance of sea urchins, the sea otters come in, eat the sea urchins, and then help to save the kelp forest. So that kelp forest then thrives, therefore affecting all of the species that rely on that kelp forest again to eat and to rest. So it's kind of like a domino effect.
Thank you. That's a really good explanation. Domino effect. I like that. Thank you. Okay, so we got a nice, good, tough question coming from Leon Huntington. Great question. What is the process, both practical and political, for reintroducing otters to historical ranges? How can citizens assist that process? I'm going to shoot, sorry, Lillian, I'm going to shoot that one to you, but I will this is my one last thing. We do have the We Were Here Sea Otter program. We are collecting voices. So we want to hear from stakeholders, communities, tribal groups. We want to hear from all of you. So that is something you could do today. That link I will add back in. It's also attached to this video. So how can a citizen assist? They can definitely start sharing their voice and becoming participants now. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lillian.
Yeah, so Wildlife Service
and closer to Lillian. There we go.
So U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is considering the prospect of reintroduction. There's no plan, but we are considering it. This summer, we held a series of open houses up and down the coast where we invited people to come talk to us and share their thoughts about what sea otters would mean in their area, whether negative or positive or neutral. We gathered that information together. We're putting together a report right now. So the process is really for us to compile what we heard and consider if we'll keep going forward. Eventually, if reintroduction were formally proposed, we would do a full NEPA process. That means we would do an environmental impact statement. We would get public comment. We would put out a final environmental impact statement. So there's sort of a long public process with lots of opportunities for public input. And so, as Heather mentioned, the most important thing is for people to be engaged. You can go to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, just look up sea otter reintroduction and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. You'll find our reintroduction consideration page, and you can sign up to receive updates. And so, yeah, when we have public comment periods or if we have open houses, we really want to hear from people to hear the thoughts of the communities.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lillian. I'm going to find that and put that link as well into the chat. But as I do that, I'm going to give the last question out. Is there any talk of reintroduction of otters north of the bay where the worst kelp die-off occurred? So I think we've kind of touched on that, but does anyone want to follow up with any sort of answers specifically for Northern California, Oregon, about that potential reintroduction? I think we touched mostly on that. So I think that we did pretty well. We're at our hour. Everyone, I'm going to add in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife site link as well. After the video is done, I'll put it in the information so people can add and get information that way as well. But I just want to say thank you guys for joining us for this float down the coast, for this live stream. It's always fun to do some technical stuff that makes it feel like it's happening right at that moment. It is amazing to think that we're able to be in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 different locations at the very same time. It is pretty magical. So thank you everyone for joining us. And we hope that everyone had a wonderful event, and we will see you at the next event, which tune in for. We have 2 events, I think tomorrow as well as Thursday, and more on Friday. So thank you all. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.